Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I welcome you all in today's session. And today we are going to talk about motivation. Once one of my students came up with this idea that he tried to make the word motivation as an abbreviation of an expression. And he said that motivation is a state of mind. M for only key to success. T for tasks needed to be done. I for intrinsic factors. V for very difficult to generate energy. A for accomplishment. T for the first step is to determine your priorities. I for individual journey. O for only one task at a time. And N for need to set a goal. And he said that that makes the complete sense of the word motivation. When we have to motivate people, there are different aspects we need to focus upon, particularly in organizational setups. We need to set different challenges. We need to create innovative environment. We need to recognize the people. We need to create a positive environment. There should be teamwork. There should be the concept of more than working. The training should be there. Work flexibility can generate a boost. And yet there are some other basics related to motivation. When we talk about the basics of motivation, there is compensation equity, competitive package, bonuses, salary, benefits. These are all the things which trigger the people extrinsically and as well as intrinsically. When the tasks assigned to them are challenging, so the challenges motivate the people to accomplish them. The goals should be properly set. The goals should be smartly defined. The environment should be innovative. New ideas should always be welcomed. There should be the concept of thinking out of the box. We should always be recognizing people, giving them gifts, giving them recognition of their work. We should be creating the positive work environment, which is creating the equal opportunity for everyone. Ergonomical issues should be properly dealt with so that the work environment is comfortable. It can create the satisfaction of the people and so that the people can come up with more productivity. The teamwork should always be encouraged. The elements of trust, communication, involvement, feedback, leadership, these should always be taken up as serious points. More than work, if we want to create an environment in which the people are ready to do more than work, so there should be proper socialization. The parties, family weekends, try something different. These are all the things which trigger their interests in the organization as well as the work. And then there should be the provision of proper training and tools. And those trainings and tools would give them the help to increase their efficiency and effectiveness. So what is motivation then? Motivation can also be defined as the sum total or the product of intensity, direction, and persistence. These are the three important ingredients of motivation. Direction should always be clear about your tasks, about your orientation, about your reason for existence, about your purpose of being. The intensity, the encouragement, the enthusiasm should always be there. And one has to be persistent, not just consistent, but they have to be persistent, because usually in the practical life, things are not that smooth. There are many ups and downs in the working environment. There are many conditions and constraints There are many challenges we have to face. And in the light of all those complexities, one has to be persistent. One should be able to overcome the unnecessary resistances. So these three things, the right direction, the enthusiasm, the intensity, and the persistence, that creates the motivation. So if we define motivation, that can be the process that account for an individual's intensity, direction, and persistence of effort towards attaining a particularly defined SMART goal. And as I told you, intensity is how hard a person tries, direction is towards beneficial goal, and persistence is how long a person tries. So why is motivation important? Just like we covered in the last chapter, job satisfaction, which is an attitude. The motivation is important because under optimal conditions, effort can often be increased and sustained. The second option can be delegation without constant supervision is always necessary, so that people should be able to apply their own creativity and innovation. Employees can become self-motivated, and motivated employees can provide competitive advantage by offering suggestions and working to satisfy customers. So these are few of the many reasons that why motivation is important. So the bottom line so far about motivation is that motivation is accomplishing things through the effort of others. If you cannot do this, you'll fail as a manager. So getting the work done through other people by motivating them is basically the key to success. Now, the motivation is the amount of effort that an individual puts into doing something. And what motivates employees? In the simple sense, motivation involves three elements. Number one, what is important to a person? Because unless and until the importance of the thing is not clear, the interest of the person would not be created. The people should always be asking that what's in it for them. And if this question is not addressed, they would not be having any interest in what you are trying to accomplish. So the first and the most important thing is that people should know what is important to a person and offering it in exchange for something. And obviously they need to see it's a give and take relationship. They need to see that if they are putting their full effort, what are they getting out of it? And then obviously we have to tame, we have to train, we have to develop the desired behavior, which is required by the organization. There are different motivation theories, and those motivation theories can be divided into three sets. The first set of theories are related to content theories, in which what is important to a person is the question addressed. The second set of theories include the nature of the exchange, and they are known as process theories. And then desired behavior can be triggered through reinforcement theories. When we talk about content theories, that what is important to a person, we focus upon Maslow's need hierarchy, Herzberg two-factor theory, and MacLean's needs theory. In relation to process theories, which are addressing the nature of the exchange, goal setting theory, reinforcement theory, job design theory, equity theory, expectancy theory, these are the things, these are the theories which should be emphasized. And related to reinforcement theories, in which the desired behavior is being triggered, obviously the goal setting and the reinforcement is addressed. Now let's cover these theories with examples one by one. First of all, we are looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Abraham Maslow identified 5 needs and arranged them in a hierarchy. And he said that unless and until lowest level needs are not satisfied, upper level needs would not be triggered. So low level needs must be satisfied before higher level needs are addressed. The lowest level need, which is also the basic need, is physiological need. The description can be food, shelter, and water. And in relation with organization, it can be the basic pay level to buy items. Once the basic pay level is fulfilled, that need is addressed, the second level need would be triggered, and that is related to safety, which means security and stability. And in organizational facility, we have the example of job security and health insurance. When we talk about belongingness, which is the next need in the hierarchy, the description is social interaction and love. And in relation with organizational facility, we can say interpersonal relations and parties. That can be the example of belongingness. Once the belongingness is given, once the belongingness is addressed, once the belongingness is fulfilled, the next need would be triggered, which is related to self-esteem. And the description can be feel good about oneself, and the organizational example can be promotions and recognition. Once the self-esteem is accomplished, the next level of need can be self-actualization, which can be described as fulfilling one's full potential. And the examples can be use abilities to the fullest, giving the people opportunity to think out of the box, to demonstrate their creativity and innovation. That can be the chance for creating self-fulfillment. So Abraham Maslow said that these needs are basically the trigger points for which the people would be striving hard to accomplish them. And once these needs are accomplished, the level of satisfaction and the level of motivation would be created. So let's go in its detail a little further related to organizational context. When we talk about psychological and physiological needs, that can be, you have to provide lunch breaks, rest breaks, and wages that are sufficient to purchase the essentials of life. When you focus upon safety needs, it means provide a safe working environment, freedom from threats, and relative job security. When you say social needs, that means create a feeling of acceptance, belonging, and community by reinforcing team dynamics. When we say esteem needs, it means recognize achievements, assign important projects, and provide status to make employees feel appreciated and valued. And that is actually very important. And when we say self-actualization, it means provide challenging and meaningful work which enables innovation, creativity, and progress according to long-term goals. So these are the theories which actually address the relationship of motivation and the needs. There is an assumption which Maslow took while designing this hierarchy. And he said individuals cannot move to the next higher level until all needs at the current lower level are satisfied. So individuals therefore must move up the hierarchy in order. But there is a criticism upon Maslow's hierarchy that a homeless person will not be motivated to meditate. So here the assumption took by Maslow is nullified, because a homeless person can meditate, can be creative, can have self-esteem, and even without having the basic needs fulfilled. Another criticism on the Maslow's hierarchy is that he said that the hierarchy of need we have just talked about is the hierarchy of needs for humans. And then he said there is an Asia equivalent, which is different hierarchy of need. And according to that context, he said that the creatures in Asia might have physiological needs. They may feel safety, but once the safety is fulfilled, rather than going towards belongingness or socialization or social need, they go for affiliation. And once they happen to affiliate themselves with something, someone, somewhere, rather than having self-esteem, Maslow said that they go for admiration. And once the admiration is given, Maslow said that the people in Asia, rather than going for self-actualization, they become status conscious. But to me, this whole hierarchy, which is Asia equivalent, is more than a racist approach, because same phenomena can be demonstrated, are always happening in European and American context as well. So that is rather a biased concern which he came up with. Now, Alderfer's ERG theory, the second theory in the sequence, is also talking about the relation of lower level needs with the higher level needs. Alderfer said that after lower level needs satisfied, person seeks higher needs. When unable to satisfy higher needs, lower needs motivation is raised. So that was the contribution given by Alderfer. And the word ERG stands for existence, relatedness, and growth. The existence is just like Maslow's physiological and safety. The relatedness is like belongingness and the social need. And the growth is more like esteem and actualization. So in terms of existence, he said food, water, clothing, shelter, and examples can be related to organization, adequate pay for necessities. In relatedness, the description can be interpersonal relations and feelings, and the examples can be good relations and accurate feedback. And in terms of growth, the description can be self-development and creative work, and examples can be continually improved skills. Creating a learning environment for the people. So that is what Alderfer identified in his context. Then we have theory X and theory Y. The theory X says that managers see workers as having little ambition, disliking work, and avoiding responsibility. And this can all be turned into theory Y, that managers see workers as self-directed, enjoying work, accepting responsibility, if we create the interest of the people in that particular work. So when they are doing the things for their own sake, so that would be creating the self-direction, enjoyment in the work, and accepting responsibility. Now, what these motivation theories are talking about, as Herzberg hygiene motivator theory said, that the people are having two types of needs. Few are categorized as extrinsic job factors, and others are categorized as intrinsic needs or intrinsic job factors. When we say extrinsic job factors, they are known as hygiene factors, and it means inadequate working conditions, salary, and incentive pay can cause dissatisfaction and prevent satisfaction. And when we say motivators, which are more intrinsic job factors, we are focusing upon job enrichment, challenging work, feedback, recognition, higher level achievement, self-actualization needs should be addressed. And as a bottom line, the best way to motivate someone is to organize the job so that doing it helps satisfy the person's higher level needs. And obviously, higher level needs are associated with the lower level needs as well. But we have to see that which set of people are operating at which set of levels or needs, so that we can appropriately configure our distribution of compensation and benefits and incentives. The people who are looking more for hygiene factors should be given appropriate working conditions, increase in salary, better compensation. And the people who are more interested in intrinsic triggers, they should be given more challenging job, more feedback, more recognition, and the opportunity to demonstrate their abilities to the maximum extent. If we make a list out of these factors, hygiene factors which are going to affect job dissatisfaction may include quality of supervisor, pay, company policies, physical working conditions, relation with others, and job security. And when we say motivators, we are more linked with job satisfaction and promotional opportunities, opportunities for growth, recognition, responsibility, achievement. These can be the things we should be looking at. So factors affecting job attributes as reported in 12 investigations in relation with Herzberg two-factor theory. It was identified that there are certain factors characterizing events on the job that led to extreme job dissatisfaction, which may include company policy and administration, supervision, relationship with supervisor, work conditions, salary, relationship with peers, personal life, relationship with subordinates, status and security. But there are factors characterizing events on the job that led to extreme job satisfaction, and those include achievement, recognition, work itself, responsibility, as we were talking in the previous slide, advancement and growth. So overall, the motivators accounted for 81% of the factors that led to job satisfaction and 31% of factors contributing to job dissatisfaction. The hygiene factors accounted for 19% of factors leading to job satisfaction and 69% of the factors contributing to job dissatisfaction. So again, the statistics we have just talked about, that is based upon the factors characterizing 1,844 events on the job that led to extreme dissatisfaction. And on the other side, factors characterizing 1,753 events on the job that led to extreme satisfaction. What we conclude out of this whole scenario is that we have to focus upon the both, because we cannot just ignore any one of them at the cost of the other. Now, David McLean's theory of need is talking about three needs, which are need for achievement, need for power, and need for affiliation. And the bottom line is that individuals have different levels of needs in each of these areas. Everybody is having need for affiliation, need for achievement, and need for power, but at different levels. And those levels will drive their obvious behavior. So there would be one dominant need in everyone. When we talk about need for achievement, we are focusing upon the drive to excel, to achieve in relation to a set of standards, to strive to succeed. When we say affiliation, the desire for friendly and close personal relationships. And when we say need for power, we are focusing upon the need to make others behave in a way that they would not have behaved otherwise. So you want to have the power of influencing others. Now, let's see some examples in organizational setup, how these needs can be demonstrated. For example, a person with strong need for affiliation may respond readily to job assignments that provide with opportunities to relate to socially attractive and satisfying individuals or groups. The persons who are very status conscious can be motivated with ability of a paneled office, a carpeted floor or wall paintings, a large desk, and aristocratic furniture. or a private bathroom, impressive job title, their own visiting cards, their own secretary and telephone, or a well-located parking place with their name clearly painted underneath the reserved sign, which gives them the sense of affiliation, and all of which are status symbols actually. And the people who are looking for power, we can say that an employee with high level desires for power may respond easily to opportunities whereby he can gain leadership and administrative responsibilities. The use of job enlargement provide added incentive to some employees because they feel capable of controlling wider sets of activities than they previously performed. And obviously, along with the job enlargement, we have to give them the job enrichment as well. It is not just horizontal loading. We need to focus upon vertical loading as well. The concept of empowerment can come in. And when we say recognition, the persons interested in enhancing their reputations and receiving recognition in the eyes of others may respond to verbal praise or to publicized awards. So this is how we can develop an association of affiliation, power, and recognition in organizational setup. Yet there is another theory, which is cognitive evaluation theory. And the cognitive evaluation theory says providing an extrinsic reward for behaviors that had been previously only intrinsically rewarding tends to decrease the overall level of motivation. This is actually a very interesting concept. Let's have its definition once again, that providing an extrinsic reward for behaviors that had been previously only intrinsically rewarding. So there is a shift of the reward category, and that shift from intrinsic to extrinsic would tend to decrease the overall level of motivation. So the theory may only be relevant to jobs that are neither extremely dull or extremely interesting, because at normal circumstances, we have to see that how the effects of these intrinsic and extrinsic factors are taking place. For example, for this theory, think about how fun it is to read in the summer, but once reading is assigned to you for a grade, you don't want to do it. Okay, so when you are compelled to do something, you lose the interest in it. Otherwise, you might have got a great interest in doing and performing that particular phenomena. So this demonstrates that the people working in the organizations should watch closely the relation and association of needs with the motivation. As this person is shouting at his employee that, what do you mean? Money ain't everything. This is a bank. Okay. And the person standing might still be having a question in his eyes that it's not only the money which can motivate the people. So different opinions can be drawn by Maslow and Herzberg. Like Maslow, the money can fulfill the basic needs of food, shelter, and water, but the money cannot create security. The money cannot create social needs or fulfill social needs. The money cannot guarantee self-esteem. And obviously, money is not basically the source for self-actualization as well. And when we look at the Herzberg model, the money we draw in form of our wages and salaries can only be there to fulfill our hygiene needs, which are associated with extrinsic aspects. The money, the wealth cannot be something which can trigger us intrinsically. So a person can be dissatisfied, at the same time, the person can be very rich. So we have to be very much careful in developing the association of monetary benefits with people's inner life. Now, Edwin Locke is talking about goal setting theory. And the basic premise is that specific and difficult goals with self-generated feedback lead to higher performance. But when we say so, remember, the relationship between goals and performance will depend upon, number one, goal commitment, that I want to do it and I can do it. In association with goal commitment, there should be defined task characteristics, which are simple and well learned. And obviously, the national culture is also impacting on the overall situation of the goal setting. And as you know, the national culture is more associated with the dimensions as described by Hofstede, that either the culture is collectivist or individualist. The culture can have long-term orientation or short-term orientation. There can be the environment of masculinity or femininity. There can be the situation of power distance. There can be uncertainty avoidance. There can be indulgence and restrained environment. So we have to be careful that whatever the national culture is talking about, how and why and what people are feeling and believing, because their feelings and beliefs would eventually trigger their behaviors. Now, when you have to set the goals, we can follow another model, which is MBO. MBO stands for Management by Objectives programs, in which company-wide goals and objectives are defined at the first level. Then there is alignment of the goals at all levels. And then there is goal setting theory application about how to achieve those goals. Focusing upon the management by objectives, a program that encompasses specific goals, participative style of goal setting for an explicit time period with feedback on goal progress. So these are the main aspects related to MBO. So if we make a list out of these factors, the list can be goal specificity, participative decision making, an explicit time period, and obviously performance feedback. And in relation with goal setting, remember that first of all, the organization at large would make and set their objectives, which are SMART in fashion, SMART in their form. And once the organizational objectives are set, the divisional objectives will be translated out of those. And once the divisional objectives are set, the departmental objectives will be set. And once the departmental objectives are being set, the individual objectives would also be determined. And moving from the departmental objectives to individual objectives, we can also relate this phenomena with KRA, KPA, and the KPIs, the key result areas, the key performance areas, and the key performance indicators. And remember, I told you earlier that key performance indicators are always SMART, just like the business level objectives are supposedly always SMART. Now, if we link MBO and goal setting theory, the MBO is having goal specificity, goal difficulty, feedback, and participation. And in terms of goal setting theory, the goal specificity, goal difficulty, and feedback is there, but the only thing lacking is participation. Even after defining these things in a detailed fashion, the MBO program can still fail because unrealistic expectations about MBO results sometimes create exaggerated effects. There can be lack of commitment by top management. There can be failure to allocate reward properly. And obviously, cultural incompatibilities can result into the failure of MBO. There is another very important concept we have to keep in mind, and that is self-efficacy. The self-efficacy concept elaborates that an individual's feelings that he or she can complete a task, for example, I know I can. So when you have this trigger, your inner signal, it would enhance the probability that goals will be accomplished or achieved. But we should not be confusing self-efficacy with self-esteem, because self-esteem is more linked with individuals' degree of liking or disliking themselves. So there can be 4 ways of increasing self-efficacy as advocated by Bandura. And those 4 ways are enactive mastery, vicarious modeling, verbal persuasion, and arousal. And the basic concern is, the basic premise is that this whole phenomena and mechanism is also linked with Pygmalion and Galati effects. Now let's have a look on reinforcement theory. The reinforcement theory talks about that behavior is a function of its consequences, and we'll cover the reinforcement theory in our next Zoom meeting. So please join the next Zoom meeting.